welcome to Kickback with Chris, Martial Arts Podcast. Hello everybody and welcome to a very special episode of Kickback with Chris. This week we're doing a Jackie Chan special, and now this is something that I've wanted to do, well, I think really from the start of the podcast, to be honest. But, you know, as with all things, I had to be patient, I had to wait a little bit before I could sort of indulge myself in this episode that, well, it started out as something that was just for me, but it's turned into something very, very different, as I'm sure you'll hear as the show progresses. Now, it's been a little bit of a challenging one this week, I'll be honest, in that I wasn't expecting the response that we got, but it's so cool hearing all the clips that people have submitted, which, for those that don't know, what we're going to do today is listen to the clips that people have submitted, and we've got some fantastic ones from all over the world, which is super cool. We've got people from obviously the UK and the States and around Europe and Hong Kong, and from all walks of life. Some people, we've got students, we've got instructors, we've got stunt performers, we've got directors, producers, all people whose Jackie's work in its various guises has in some way influenced them, touched them, encouraged them to do whatever it is that they're doing in their life. Now, there are a lot of recordings to get through, so rather than have our usual news segment and me waffling on about various things, we're going to get straight into the content. So the first person to submit was actually Mags, a very regular contributor to the show. So I'm just going to play his clip for you straight away now.
Chris Jones, sir, I'm afraid you've unleashed the beast here with this one. I apologise in advance for the length of this recording. Jackie Chan, I'm a big time Jackie Chan fan from back in the day. His movies got me into martial arts. A lot of people say it was Bruce Lee for them, but for me it was definitely Jackie Chan. I'm 40 now, so my conscious memory of childhood sort of starts in the 80s. Back then, martial arts cinema was booming, relatively speaking, or at least by comparison with today. Every video shop had a martial arts movie section, and we all worked our way through each and every one. I think the first Jackie Chan film I saw was Police Story, and it blew me away. I watched the final fight sequence on repeat hundreds of times. The more I saw it, the more I liked it. He brought a light-hearted comedy to the martial arts movies, which was a nice contrast to the more serious type of martial arts movies that were coming out at the time. I like the stunts, the humour, the fact that he got hit quite a lot. He never portrayed a role where he was a legendary superhuman, unbeatable fighter. Nah, he got hurt, and as part of the story and in real life, doing the stunts and whatever. In the 70s, I'd say Drunken Master was my favourite 70s Jackie Chan film. 80s, it's got to be Project A, although Wheels on Meals runs a very close second because of the fight scene with Benny the Jet. In the 90s, this is harder than I thought, I can think of loads. Drunken Master 2, I'd have to say, hands down. Although there's a couple of great fight scenes in Gorgeous with Bradley James Allen. I haven't seen The Foreigner yet, but it's on my list, so I think that pretty much brings us up to date. So thanks for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to hearing the podcast. Speak soon, sir. All the best.
Thank you, Max, for that submission. I will just say this now straight away. That is the longest recording. I thought I'd do that one first. But no, Max, he had so much stuff to say, and it was actually all relevant. But obviously I can only include so much. But yeah, some great comments there. What I would say is, if you've not seen The Foreigner yet, if you've still not watched it, you need to go and watch that one. I really did enjoy seeing him in a different light and having an opportunity to play a very, very different role. For me, we'll touch on this a little bit later on, but I'd been waiting for this type of film since Rumble in the Bronx, actually. A fight where we see quite an angry, quite an aggressive character played by Jackie, and sort of vengeful, I would say. And we haven't really seen that in him since Rumble in the Bronx, which coincidentally was one of the first films that I really took notice of his. But yeah, we'll come on to that a little bit later on. So the next recording we're going to come to is from Eric Jacobus. He's a US-based stunt performer. And if you've not seen Eric's work before, originally, this is going from memory, he started out with the group The Stunt People, and they used to produce some fantastic short films online. And I remember back in the days of dial-up internet, waiting for their releases to watch them. Some fantastic work, some crazy stunts, without a doubt influenced by Jackie's work, in my opinion. But let's hear what Eric had to say himself.
Yeah, this is Eric Jacobus. I'm a stuntman, and when I saw Jackie Chan when I was about 13 years old, I was really taken in by the fact that Jackie could tell a story with his whole body and tell it comedically and through fight scenes. And I think that was like an evolution on the vaudeville style storytelling with the Marx Brothers and the Three Stooges, which I grew up on. And I love that kind of storytelling. I love how Jackie Chan would always try and get out of fights. That's how I always was as a kid. I was very pacifist. And thank you, Jackie Chan. You really drove me to become the stuntman I am today. When I saw you, I feel like I saw myself.
So thanks for that one, Eric. A great message there. I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of people out there in the industry now, regardless of in what form, that can trace their roots back to Jackie, whether they're an instructor or a stunt performer or whatever it is that they're doing. There are so many people out there influenced by Jackie's work, myself included. I remember, I did actually mention this earlier on, Rumble in the Bronx is one of the first films that really caught my attention in the 90s. And I was going through sort of like a lull, shall we say, sort of a down patch in my training at the time. And when I saw the things that he was doing, jumping down gaps between cars and walls and fighting gangs in the sort of the hideout and stuff, and using a ski as a weapon, and I just saw this as like, wow, this guy's crazy. Look at the things that he's doing, and that really inspired me to put more effort into my training and get back into it and really focus. So our next clip comes from a good friend of mine over the years, a UK-based director by the name of Steve Lawson. I was actually lucky enough to work with Steve on a number of his projects, and Steve actually gave me my first break in the performance sort of movie industry. Worked with him on a short film for, I believe it was for a TV show at the time, but it's going back. It's going back a long time. It's going back probably 18 years. But yeah, he gave me my first break, and then I went on to work on two of his features following on from that. So yeah, let's have a listen to what Steve has to say.
My name is Steve Lawson. I'm a film producer and director. Jackie Chan's been a huge influence on my life and my career ever since I was young. The first Jackie Chan film I ever saw was Police Story, which is probably also still my favourite to this day. It absolutely blew me away. I remember renting it on VHS, and I think I must have rented it about 5 times and watched it about 30 times just on that first VHS before I got my own copy. I watched it another 100,000 times since then. Even recently, I saw a re-release on the big screen just a couple of years ago, and it blew me away all over again, just to see it on the big screen. As I say, Jackie Chan's been a huge influence to me. Ever since I saw Police Story, I've been kind of mimicking his movies in my work and trying to recreate some of those amazing stunts and fight sequences. Of course, you can never do it as well as he did. I think I would still be a film director if I hadn't seen Jackie Chan movies, because it was something I always wanted to do ever since I was very, very young. But I certainly wouldn't have made the films that I have made. The martial arts action movies like The Silencer and something like Essex Heist, which had a big martial arts fight scene at the end. Things like that. I never would have gone in that direction, I think. And I never would have lived the life that I've lived. I never would have been to Hong Kong and China. I never would have learned to speak Mandarin and just done many of the things that I've done if I wasn't sort of inspired by that interest in in Chinese culture that I got from watching those Jackie Chan movies as I was growing up.
So yeah, thanks for that, Steve. Yeah, some great comments there. Actually, I can actually connect to them a little bit on the whole sort of direction of life and career thing with that, because listening to that, actually thinking about it, and I don't want to get too deep into it because you can get a little bit silly with it if you're not careful. But I thinking about it now, really, that I wouldn't have ended up working around Europe and Hong Kong and China in the way that I did if it wasn't for seeing Rumble in the Bronx, because that obviously I had an interest in martial arts films and TV shows before that, but there wasn't nothing. I hadn't seen anything that had made me think, oh, that's what I want to do. So certainly in that respect, I can understand a little bit where Steve's coming from on that one. But with regards to Police Story, I mean, I have a feeling that Police Story is going to feature quite heavily in today's episode. A lot of people will mention this one, or as I like to think of it a little bit, it's Glass Story. If those of you that have seen the film will know what I mean. The end fight sequence smashes a whole load of glass, loads of it. People being thrown through it, motorbikes being driven through it. There's some fantastic sequences in there. One that everybody always talks about is the scene where Jackie slides down the pole through the lights that are actually wired into the main supply because the battery wasn't strong enough, and the stunt guy that does the backflip down the escalator, which is one of the most painful things I've seen on screen. But if you listen to this and you've not checked that out, go look up Police Story. It's pretty easy to get hold of on DVD and Blu-ray these days. Or if you're like me, you've got it on Blu-ray, DVD, VHS, and VCD, because that's what I'm like. Okay, so moving on to our next person here. I think what we'll do is we'll go to a friend of mine, Mr. Martin Wan, who has. We interestingly enough, we shot a tribute video to Wheels on Meals as part of a promotional piece that we did for a martial arts event at the time. I'll actually link it into the show notes so you can take a look at it. Funnily enough, one of the things that Jackie does talk about a lot is timing, rhythm and timing between performers. And Martin is somebody who I've had the fortune to fight on screen a number of times, not in person, thankfully. We've not fallen out yet. But no, fighting him on screen. And he's somebody who I've immediately clicked with that sort of rhythm, tempo and timing, which I think comes across in the fight scenes that we've done. And we often have this joke that the newest version of my showreel could actually be his because he's in it that much. But he's just somebody that we sort of the timing clicks and yeah. But if you go, I'll leave it in the show notes. You can go and check that out. But yeah, let's have a little listen to what Martin's got to say.
My name's Martin, and Jackie Chan was one of my biggest inspirations as a kid. My dad had a load of VHS tapes with Chinese writing on. I remember when I was about 6 years old, putting those VHS tapes in the cassette and not even knowing what was on there. So what a relief that it was a Jackie Chan action movie and not something weird and dodgy. But Jackie Chan mainly inspired me to fall over loads and do that cool wall stunt in Mittmaster where he puts his hands and his feet on the walls and tries to climb up vertically. Every time I see a wall from now on that's about 5.5, 6 feet apart, I try and do it, and sometimes I fail, sometimes I don't. So he's just great at everything he does. Multi-talented filmmaker, stuntman and singer. He's all the things that I've always wanted to be.
Thanks for that, Martin. Although I had no idea you wanted to be a singer. That's a new one for me. But no, joking aside, listen to some of Martin's comments there. The thing he was saying about the wall thing, I think everyone's tried that at some point. But another one that a lot of people are trying, this is going back to Rumble in the Bronx again, and I know that there's more people out there than just me that have done this. Whenever you see a shopping trolley, what do you try and do? Yep, the scene from Rumble in the Bronx when Jackie jumps through it. goes up through the back and jumps out and across. I think I ripped many a shirt in Asda car park in Doncaster in my youth trying to do that one, and it is a lot harder than it looks. And the trolley that Jackie uses in Rumble is tiny compared to the ones that we have in Asda and Tesco. So, hey there, Asda and Tesco just got a plug. But no, well, I suppose you might get loads of kids now trying to jump through shopping trolleys. But no, it's definitely a fun one. I think there's so many moments in Jackie's films that people have tried to recreate just for fun, or emulate in some way and put it into their productions. So yeah, good shout out there, Martin. Okay, so our next guest now, somebody I've known for a long time, and actually, fully admittedly, I speak to the guy all the time, and I've known him by John for so long, but I wanted to actually use his correct name, so I asked him how to say it, okay? And I believe it's pronounced Shuer, and I hope I just got that right. You'll have to let me know, message dude, you'll have to comment and let me know, but anybody that knows him, this guy is, how would I describe him? Is like a gentle mountain. This guy is huge, so powerful, and such a competent martial artist as well. But in himself, he's such a kind and gentle person, which I think actually comes across in this audio clip. So, yeah, let's listen. Let's have a quick listen now to what Shuer has to say.
What I love about Jackie Chan is his ability to infuse comedy and martial arts together so naturally, especially as he's able to use his environment and his surroundings against his opponents so creatively. But more importantly, what I love most about Jackie Chan is his work ethic. At first you don't succeed. Try, and try again until you get it right.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we've all seen the outtakes. We've come to expect the outtakes now in a Jackie Chan film, and actually there's a lot of additional footage that you can get on YouTube and see of multiple takes. I believe he has. I don't know if this still stands. I should really have checked this before I started to record. But the Guinness World Records for the most amount of takes for a shot. But yeah, I mean you see him, for example, a simple what looks like on film a simple fan flick. It rotates and comes back to his hand, and thousands of takes and attempts to try and get these things right. And it's actually a very good example in a documentary he made called My Stunts. And there's the sped up shot of him flicking a pot from the ground and then kicking it into a guy, and it just shows the process of going it of over and over and over and over again. And Jackie himself is relentless. Just keeps on going until he gets it right. And it pays off because, some of the really cool things that you see him, even if it's flicking a pencil from a table and catching it, and these little moments in his films, these little cool moments, we'll call them. Those shots have probably taken hours to get for a few seconds on screen, but then they're immortalized, aren't they? They're there forever, and people remember these. So. That's some good memories. And then, of course, using objects, everyday objects. Is there anything that he hasn't used in a film yet? He's even used other people as fighting objects in fight scenes. But obviously, it's very, very good from fridge doors to chairs, all sorts of things. Even kit cars. I want to say kit cars, like in Rumble in the Bronx with the sort of fake Lamborghini at the end with the sword wedged onto where the door was to fight a hovercraft. I mean, only in a Jackie Chan film. Okay, so moving on now, we're going to go to Mr. Phil Hobden, who actually has his own podcast, which I will link in the show notes. And somebody that I've worked with in the past on two of the films that he's been involved as a producer. So let's hear what Phil has to say.
So, my favourite Jackie Chan film. Actually, it's not about a film, it's about a moment. I remember back at university when there was National Cinema Day and all films were £1. And I dragged all my housemates to the cinema to watch their first ever Jackie Chan film, which was Rumble in the Bronx. Anyway, when we got back to the house after the film, I then sat them down and made them watch Police Story 2. For me, one of the ultimate Jackie Chan moments. And from there, a generation of Jackie Chan fans was born. So, Jackie, when you're sitting there counting your millions, you can thank me for the 7 or 8 people from Carlisle who went in and watched one of your films for £1 and came out and were massive, massive Jackie Chan fans.
Thanks for that one, Phil. Yeah, the whole thing with Police Story 2, the fight sequence in the park, I must have watched that fight sequence hundreds of times, possibly more. I don't know. I used to have, there you go, little geek moment here, fanboy moment. What I used to do is back in the days of VHS, I used to hook up to. Now, before I say this disclaimer, I wasn't some master videotape cloner or something. It's just for my own personal use, okay? Not like some of the horror stories you hear of some people on the internet, but enough said about that. But no, joking aside, I used to collect all the favourite fight scenes from different movies and put them all onto one VHS. So like 4 hours of fight scenes, because I was even at a young age, I was really serious about sort of dissecting and understanding the process of building up fight sequences. Everything obviously from the technique and the choreography to the camera work and the angles, and and understanding. I was kind of at one point obsessed with like Jackie's use of the double cut. Which he actually does use in the Police Story 2 scene with a roundhouse or tourniquet, whatever you call it, to the guy's face when he's holding the pole, fireman's pole, the slide on the play park. But yeah, coming back to the fight scene in the park itself, I think there's pretty much every sort of independent fight company or sort of a group that had come up when YouTube was first coming around in sort of like the 2000s, actually before YouTube as well, when people used to upload fight sequences onto their websites in chunks. There was a point where like everybody had a fight scene in a park, and I think there was no other reason why anybody would think it would be cool or acceptable to have a fight sequence in a kids' play park other than because they saw Police Story 2. That has to be the reason for that. So yeah, Phil, thanks for that memory. That was a good one. Okay, so moving on now. I think what we'll do is we'll take one from another friend of mine, Adam. Now, Adam is he's a really cool guy, so down to earth, excellent martial artist. Now, if ever there was subtitles required for a podcast, the ultimate irony there, then you need them. So apologies to any of our foreign friends who have any difficulty understanding Adam's accent. It's from the same neck of the woods from me, but I've managed through constant badgering from my wife to sort of detrain or detune my accent. Okay, so let's have a little listen now to what Adam's got to say.
I remember watching Jackie Chan films as a kid. Was some of the first martial arts films I ever saw. Ones like Armour of God, Police Stories, Wheels on Meals, Drunken Master. Wow, I really loved them back as a kid. Like, well, wow, look at this guy. Sort of like jumping around with no wires and stuff. It must be crazy. One of the most notable moments I remember is on Armour of God, when he jumps off that cliff onto that air balloon. You don't really see that much in films, and I really like this guy. I really like what he does. And anyway, I followed his films for years and years since. I'd probably say one of my favourite fight scenes that's ever happened that I've ever seen in one of his films was Rumble in the Bronx, when he's in that bar fighting with all that gang. That was something else. Like seeing how they use his props and stuff, fridges, stools and stuff. You don't get that much from other martial artists. I'd probably say, other than that fight scene, I'd say the best one that I enjoyed was Forbidden Kingdom, when him and Jet Li first came together. like seeing Jackie Chan's old drunken boxing and.
Thanks for that one, Adam. Little disclaimer here before you wonder what happened there. The recording actually cut off. the website, the app that we use for recording, it actually limits it to 90 seconds, and there's a lot of people that fell foul to that one, Adam being one of them. So he probably did actually carry on talking for a while afterwards, but we got the idea. But no, it's interesting that you mentioned Forbidden Kingdom, the scene with Jet Li, because I do think that one is one that's often overlooked. I remember it's interesting. He mentioned the drunken boxing section of that. I remember vividly in the cinema having that sort of cool moment when that happened, and there was you could hear there was several other people in the audience as well that sort of let out a bit of a gasp when that happened, because since Drunken Master 2, that's something that we've all been waiting for to see Jackie do again, and when we finally got that moment in Forbidden Kingdom, that was like ultimate geek moment. And you could just see the confusion on a lot of other people's faces, like, why are these guys so excited? But no, that was it. Was it an excellent fight sequence as well? Again, one of the cool things for this, and this is me coming from it. Putting my geek hat on again and looking at the breaking down the sequence. There's some actually, I believe it's on the behind the scenes footage on the Blu-ray edition. It's probably on YouTube by now as well, truth be told, of Jackie and Jet going through the choreography for one section, and they're going through it with the coordinator at the time, and they're blocking it out. And I believe they actually talk about it as well in the same section in the interviews, how they literally they watched it a handful of times and then just performed it immediately. And it was quite a long sequence. Obviously, when you see it on film, it's cut quite a lot. But when they're actually performing it in one long sequence, it was amazing to see how quickly they both picked it up so fast and were able to just bosh out this choreography in one long sequence. Which is something that a lot of performers these days do struggle with. But yeah, that was a really, really interesting one for me as a fan of both martial arts filmmaking and of course Jackie Chan. And obviously shout out there to Jet Li as well, somebody else who is a massive influence to me in the martial arts scene. So our next person, I've got this big list in front of me to choose from here. I think we're going to go to another UK based martial artist and actor, wushu performer, and multiple competition winner, and somebody who's represented the country as well, and a fantastic martial artist, somebody I came across in the sort of early 2000s, around the same sort of time I was starting out, Mr. Steve Coleman. Let's have a little listen to what he's got to say.
Hi Chris, Steve Coleman here. I think my favourite Jackie Chan movie of all time has to be Drunken Master. The style and the choreography of the Kung Fu was just absolutely mind-blowing. Seeing that when I was a kid was just something I'd never seen before in movies. I was just used to seeing like karate and taekwondo stuff from the American martial arts movies. So the first time I saw Drunken Master just absolutely blew me away. That's really what got me into Chinese martial arts in the first place. And obviously became a massive fan of Jackie Chan thereafter. Yeah, absolutely brilliant film. The actual routine that he does once he's learned the drunken immortals is the thing that really got me going into it. It's fantastic.
Thanks for that one, Steve. So yeah, Drunken Master. That's one of my favourites as well. I think it's a lot of people's favourites. It's one of those films, interestingly, that a lot of people did see. Back when it was still fairly new and even sort of earlier days as well. But then it's one of those films, interestingly, I think, where a lot of people saw sort of The Matrix and Crouching Tiger and were first introduced to Yuen Woo-ping, and then went back and went through his back catalogue of films prior to that. And it was one of those ones that people sort of stumbled on a lot later on. But yeah, Drunken Master, I've got this film in many different guises. One of my favourites, though, is the first VHS copy that I got with the English dub, which is brilliant. I think everybody remembers and loves the line there, "A fart for the stick king." It's a classic, absolute classic. But no, everything about this film, the comedy, the pacing of it, the the training sequences, obviously the fights as well. It's all just so well done. And as Steve touched on, obviously the training sequences as well, which were. It was something that you started seeing a lot in many different films as well. That's that sort of style of sequence. So yeah, it is a classic, and it's one that all fans of martial arts cinema should watch. And particularly if you're a Jackie Chan film, if you've not seen Drunken Master, you need to hunt that one down. Recently, it was about a year or so ago, it was released on Blu-ray, sort of remastered again, and it's. Definitely worth picking up and checking out. Okay, so next on our list, I'm just going to get it back up on my screen because I've managed to close the window down. Yes, I think what we're going to do, we're going to go to a good friend of mine now, somebody I've known for a number of years, somebody who's played quite an important part in the careers of a lot of people, both martial artists and actors. Somebody who actually lives out in Hong Kong, and plays a very active role in the movie scene over there, and actually globally as well. Good friend of mine, Mr. Mike Leader.
Hey Chris, Mike Leader calling from Hong Kong. Jackie Chan, without a doubt, is one of the main reasons I ended up in Hong Kong. I've been here now for 28 years working in film and TV, and it can all be traced back to a double bill on Betamax, yep, long time ago, of Snake and Eagle Shadow and Drunken Master, Rank Video, Neil Adams artwork. I'm looking at the artwork right now, actually. I bunked off school, I'm sorry to say, and we drank a lot of scrumpy cider, and we watched a lot of movies that day, and that double bill of Jackie Chan made me an instant fan, and made me go, one day I'd like to go to Hong Kong and I'd like to meet that guy. And a few years later, I got myself on a plane and did just that. And he is the dude. He's the governor. I've been lucky enough to meet him many times over the years. I've interviewed him probably 20 to 30 times for various magazines, DVD special features, documentaries, etc. I've worked on a number of his projects, including Police Story 3 Supercop, City Hunter. I got to spend a lot of time on the set of Drunken Master 2, Rush Hour 3, Chinese Zodiac, Kung Fu Yoga, and he's the governor. He's Dai Gore, Big Brother. Genuinely one of the nicest people in the world. Has never been anything but nice to me. Great inspiration and lovely dude. Cannot say enough good things.
So yeah, I want to say a big thank you to Mike for that contribution. It means a lot to me to have somebody of Mike's experience on the show, and obviously he's quite a humble, sort of understated chap, but this guy is sort of a Hong Kong movie legend to me and to a lot of other people. He's worked with most people out there, and obviously said he's interviewed Jackie upwards to 20 times. He's worked with him on several of his films. I've only been able to so far I say only, for a lot of people just the one is the good enough, but I've met Jackie once, and he's got this, as I think I actually mentioned this in the interview, it was either with Lee or with Mark previously, when Jackie walked into the room, there was just sort of like this energy given off. He was just everybody in the room sort of was instantly energized by his presence, and it's just like his human battery of energy, absolutely amazing to be around. So yes, thank you to Mike for his time and his experience. I do actually want to just say, off the back of that clip, that Mike will be joining us for a future podcast soon, to talk about his experiences over the years working in the industry, and obviously his time in the martial arts as well. So yes, thank you to Mike, and we want to really look forward to and keep a lookout for. Okay, so I'm going to run up a quick clip now. This is actually from one of my students, which is pretty cool. Corinne is one of my students. So let's bring her on now just to see what she's got to say.
Hiya, this is Corinne from Chris Jones School. I'm super proud to say that I'm part of a fantastic school that supports Jackie Chan's Dragon Hearts European charity. Mr. Jones got me into Jackie Chan, starting with Rumble in the Bronx. Absolutely fantastic film, so I went on to discover a few more myself. Absolutely have to say that Drunken Master and The Legend of Drunken Master are definitely two of my favourite films that he's done.
Thanks for that, Corinne. But yeah, just for the record, I'd just like to state that I don't force my students to watch Jackie Chan films. I do, I do go on about them continuously, and then they maybe pick up on it a little bit. But no, joking aside, it's cool to be able to introduce. I mean, it's nice when my students come in and they've got their interest in martial arts and perhaps haven't experienced or already seen many of his films, and other than maybe the more newer ones, and I can say, you need to go back and watch this, or you need to go back and watch this. And it's interesting she mentions Rumble in the Bronx, because I kind of influenced that. That was probably the one that really got me into Jackie's films, because obviously that was the first one to be really pushed in the UK. Obviously, we'd had his films before that, but this was the first one that really got a big push, and a cinema release at the time. I remember I was at school. I was doing my GCSEs at the time, and that I remember they got a cinema release, and arranging a bunch of friends to go and see it. Now, as well, Corinne actually mentioned in that clip Jackie's charity, JC Dragon's Heart Europe. I'm really pleased and proud to be able to be involved with that group myself. I want to say involved, just to help spread the word and promote them at events when I'm at them, and just say good things, and obviously help to raise money for them as well. And at the end of the show, I'm actually going to be announcing a little something that I've got going on soon, to help raise them some money, and to give you guys, those at Vast as well, the opportunity to train with me. So yeah, you have to keep a little listen out for the end of the show for that one. So moving on to our next guest, and I'm just looking on my list now. I think we're going to go to Lee now. Right now, Lee runs an online blog, doing reviews and all sorts of other cool stuff with martial arts. Again, I will link him in on the show notes so you can go check him out. So let's have a little listen to what Lee's got to say.
This is Lee Golden for Film Combat Syndicate. Wheels on Meals is probably the one film I always go back to on any conversation pertaining to Jackie Chan and his movies. The fight scene between him and Benny Urquidez, of which there are two. The finale is probably one of the most replayed on any VHS tape I've ever watched. It's the film I always go back to when I think about Jackie Chan and his movies. I generally love his films, but Wheels on Meals and his fight finale, his stellar, explosive, sweaty, high energy, just amazing final fight with him and Benny Urquidez is simply one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen in film history, especially Jackie Chan film history. And there's my confessional. This has been Lee Golden for Film Combat Syndicate, hanging out on Chris's podcast.
Very cool. Thanks for that, Lee. I totally get where Lee's coming from there with Benny Urquidez, who has worked on a number of Jackie's films over the years, and there's just something about the energy between Jackie and Benny that's unique to those fight sequences. Obviously, again in Dragons Forever as well, and it's just like raw power that comes across. I mean, Benny, an accomplished fighter in reality as well. If you don't know Benny's fight record, you do need to go and look up. This guy was undefeated. It was just and still is today, an amazing martial artist, and but he was able to take the energy and power that he had in reality and translate that to screen, which is something so rare. He understood the tempo, the rhythm and timing that was needed to work with Jackie, and they almost looked. It was like they were like there was a Bluetooth link between them when they're fighting. And if you're watching, especially on Wheels on Meals, there's a sequence on the floor that takes place. And their movements, it's so amazingly synced. Now, obviously, of course, they rehearsed it, but even then, still to be able to get the time in as close as they did is absolutely amazing. And for me, I always remember the first time, the sort of like, as I've referenced, start that again, as I've referenced several times, the sort of cool moment in the same film where Jackie backs up to the table and he's walking backwards. And there's Benny does a spin hook kick, and blows out the candle. But that is it's so energetic and so cool to see. So yeah, that's definitely up there as one of the all-time big fight sequences, alongside, obviously, as I mentioned before, the sequence in Dragons Forever, at the fight sequence at the end. And actually, Benny fights with Samo and Yumbio as well in the same film. Two people that Jackie's worked with quite extensively over the years, and I think we're all secretly holding on to the hope that there's going to be that Three Dragons film again. Let's that one more time, where all three of them are on film together. It would be super cool to see. Whether we're ever going to get it, I don't know, but yeah, it would be so cool to see. So the next person that's going to join us is going to be Darren, another awesome stunt performer based out in the States. So let's have a little listen to what Darren's got to say.
Hi, my name is Darren Holmquist. I'm a fight choreographer, stuntman, and an independent filmmaker. And my favorite film of Jackie Chan's by far is Police Story. Police Story actually feels like a gritty but also stylistic martial arts film, because it's a cop drama first, and when the action kicks in, it almost feels real even when it's still stylistic. You can see that Jackie Chan is throwing somebody through glass, but then at the same time, a jump spinning heel kick still feels like it's not out of place. My favorite part is when Jackie's getting wailed on by like 4 guys, and it doesn't look like choreography. Obviously, it is choreographed, but it feels like Jackie is desperately blocking and desperately covering up and just wanting people to stop hitting him. And then when he just unleashes the spin kicks, it doesn't feel out of place. It feels somewhat real even when it's not. So it's really influenced my work in trying to make stylistic movements still work in a gritty world. And I have Jackie Chan to thank for that, for his work on Police Story.
Thanks for that, Darren. Yeah, so true, and I agree completely with what you're saying there. The moments that flick between sort of the more sort of fancy techniques and the realism, but yet it still works, and that's something that's unique to Jackie's ability to be able to do that, and the way he uses the camera as well. That, I mean, a lot of people have now picked up upon and use as well. A lot of these things. He was the first person to do and use some of these techniques, and it works. It works. How it works. It's so clever. Some of the things, in theory, when you think about it, they shouldn't work, but then they do, and it's amazing to see. I mean, there's countless examples out there on YouTube. You can go out and look up. But again, I know Police Story is featured quite heavily, obviously for good reason. But now there's the shot where Jackie gets hit by the bag and bounces his head off the glass and breaks the glass. Just phenomenal. Just having having the guts to do it, and secondly the timing and precision and everything to get it right. It absolutely phenomenal film. Okay, so moving on to our next guest, we're going to go over to another Phil. Phil actually is another somebody else who runs a podcast and blogging as well. So yes, let's have a little listen to what Phil's got to say.
Hi Chris, this is Phil. Phil G from Eastern Film Fan. Saw your post on Jackie Chan. First up, just want to say, keep up the great work with Keep Back with Chris. Excellent, love the show. Keep it up, it's great. Support you and what you're doing. Keep doing that, brilliant. Jackie Chan wise, you put a question out there. For me, just personally, myself, if we're talking Jackie Chan, the first thing that hits me, obviously, is fight scenes, choreographed like beautifully. Stunts are one of those, but fight-wise, Benny Arquides, Wheels on Mills, deconstruct that. That is one hell of a fight. It's like a beautiful dance. That's one of the first fight scenes that really saw. There was others, but that was just like captivating. For me as a person, I was into martial arts as well. But I love that. I mean, it's such a great fight scene. It's beautiful to watch. For me, that's that's something people should watch, and I don't feel that's interesting to talk about. Anyway, Chris, I love you. I love what you're doing. You keep it up. Thanks for that. And I enjoy the show. So speak to you soon. Cheers.
thanks for that, Phil. Yep, the check is in the post. But no, joking aside, no, thank you for the kind words. It does mean a lot. Yeah, it's you understand more than most probably how difficult it is to keep this podcasting going and the difficulties of time constraints and getting this stuff out. But thank you. But going back to your comments, obviously I've just, as luck would have it, just spoken about Benny Akides, and yeah, you're right. That fight scene is. It's amazing to watch, and it's one of those sequences that it doesn't matter how many times you've watched it, you can just go back and watch it again and find something new in it, and still appreciate the technicality of it and the work that went into the sequence itself. I'm lucky enough to have had the opportunity to have met Benny once and spoke with him just very, very briefly on this. And obviously thanked him for inspiring me. I actually told him about the video that I had of all the fight sequences. He just kind of looked at me, smiled and nodded. But he's really, really, really nice guy, humble guy. And, he was very nice to me. So, yeah. Right. Moving on to our next one, I think we're going to jump over to Ken now. Now this is somebody else actively involved in the martial arts blogging and podcasting scene. So let's have a little listen to what he's got to say.
Hey folks, Kennedy from the Podcast on Fire network here. On Jackie Chan, what I spontaneously like more than anything else from the last few years is the mix of playing to his crowd who likes the action comedy, but also when he takes the chance or is given the chance to act. And the thing is, the effect of that is that he responds. We've known for decades he's a good, understated, commanding actor. In the likes of The Karate Kid, recently in The Foreigner, he's been up to the task and then some. And even combining that with action suitable for the story has been great. Plus, setting aside his trademark style of action, taking the spotlight away from himself has been commendable, such as in Railroad Tigers. He always said he'd like to act, and if he stays this busy, maybe we'll see more dramatic vehicles. For the record, favorite Jackie Chan movie of mine, Dragon Lord. May look low on action, but it's a wonderfully entertaining movie across the board, and it's a pitch-perfect physical showcase, whether talking the roof scene where he avoids the spears or being beaten by one insect for the finale. Thank you.
Thanks for that one. Yeah, some good shouts there. Dragon Lord is one. I remember I saw that quite early on, and I saw it was sort of touted as sort of the follow-up to Young Master, which is another great film. If you've not seen, you've got to go back. Those out there that have not seen it, Young Master, definitely worth checking out. So has some breakthrough moments in sort of martial arts cinema. If you've seen the 70s style kung fu fight sequences, that has one particular scene in it that's a total breakaway from the way things used to be, but I'll let you guys go find that one out for yourselves. But now going back to Dragon Lord, I remember picking that one up, and I remember it being very, very different to what I was expecting. Not necessarily in a bad way, just very, very different. But I love the hacky sack match at the end. For those that don't know what I mean, it's like a kind of like cross between badminton and football, I guess, and it's very, very, very skillful. I've had a little go myself and was absolutely terrible at it, but it's well worth watching, checking out for that. But again, you mentioned the end fight sequence, which is very brutal. Some of the most painful falls I've seen on film cinema, especially the one Jackie does with the over rotation where he lands on his back. It's just truly bone crunching to see. But yeah, it's very brutal scene. One where essentially Jackie's character is just is it Mars, isn't it? Yeah, that's in it. They're just taking an absolute belting, basically, working together to try to defeat the villain. But yeah, getting an absolute smashing in the process. So yeah, definitely a good shout there. And with regards to the more dramatic roles, yeah, Karate Kid again, one that people tend to overlook, I think, a little bit. It's a great. Do you know, I actually really, really enjoyed that film. And the scene where he's recalling his family, and obviously it's quite an upsetting scene, quite a dramatic scene, and I think he did an awesome job in that sequence when he's talking about obviously rebuilding the car. That's a great scene, and I think that demonstrated to a lot of people the depth that Jackie has in his acting ability. And then again, we're coming back to The Foreigner. Again, we've got to see him in a much more sort of darker role, and one that I really, really enjoyed, and would love to see him revisit again sometime soon. So the last recordings we're going to go to, I say recordings, we're actually going to go to 2 back to back. Now these actually, interesting one here, these actually came in whilst I was recording this morning. These guys very, very kindly sent these in whilst on the way back from a job. 2 Marks, we've got Mark Sears and Mark Outbreak. So let's have a quick listen to what these guys have got to say.
Hi Chris, this is Mark Sears. I'm a actor, screenfighter and fight choreographer. Subject of choice today is Jackie Chan, I hear. Now Jackie for me really revolutionised the game as far as finding creative and innovative ways to make fights. And I found that really inspiring, and it's sort of helped me with my creativity when making a fight and implementing what I have available to me on that location to make the fight creative and different. So I just want to say thank you to Jackie Chan for all his inspiration over the years, and I want to thank you again, Chris, for inviting us on the show, and keep rocking it, keep doing what you're doing, because it's fantastic stuff. Thanks.
Hi Chris, Mark Outbreak from the UK. I'm an actor, stuntman and filmmaker. Topic of choice today is Jackie Chan, I hear, and he's been a great influence in my life. For the last 10 to 15 years I've run my own small independent action film company, and there is lots of Jackie Chan influence throughout the films I've made and the stunts I've done. I like to use the surroundings in fight scenes, make the best of the locations, come up with different bits here and there, and it stems from when I was a very young age, channel surfing on my black and white TV in my room, and seeing some Jackie Chan movies at like midnight, 1 in the morning on various channels. Police Story being one that I remember quite vividly because the stunts just blew my mind, not just from Jackie, but from his stunt team. Smashing through windows, going through tables, flipping off of balconies and landing on the floor which looked like it should kill them is probably what sparked my interest in stunts, being like, well, how did he walk away from that? And learning the craft myself. So yeah, look forward to listening to the show, and keep doing what you do. It's great. Peace.
Thanks for that one, guys. So yeah, just to explain, the reason I played those together is because those guys are actually in the car together right now. So they very kindly recorded that on the way back from a job that they were at. But some interesting points. I think it's fair to say a little bit like some of the things that I mentioned earlier on, that the main reason that a lot of people do look at using their environment and props around them is down to Jackie Chan. I mean, yeah, there are other people that have done something, but not to the extent that Jackie was doing, and the way and the things that he was doing. There's a difference between picking up an object and using it to strike somebody with, and then picking up an object and then using it as a distraction technique, which makes actually quite a pretty thing happen rather than a violent thing happen, and just causes that little momentary break in the fight sequence there. Maybe using it in a comedic way rather than a violent way. He uses the environment and props him in a way that's very, very unique to him. It was very clever in the way that he went down that route. But obviously there is also, as I mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of take after take after take, and the work ethic and the way that he's persisted to get those takes. There must be some days, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all very hard-working crew, but there must be some days where the people working on set must be just like, oh no, it's one of those scenes where we know we've got to just keep going and keep going and keep going till we get it. So, I suppose all the way through this, I've been giving my thoughts and feelings a little bit, but I've not sort of, I suppose, given my my voice clip, so to speak. So what I've actually done is I've just got a tab open on my computer now. It's actually IMDb I've got open with a big list of, when I say a big list, it's this huge list of credits and films that he's worked on and been involved with in various different ways. And something very unique with Jackie. He's not one of these people that's content with, say, one new film a year. Multiple productions. He's always got something going on. I mean, obviously recently we announced that he's involved with the new Ip Man film, which is, for me personally, I'm really looking forward to that one. But more recently we've had Bleeding Steel, we've had The Foreigner, we've had another direction change with with the Lego movie as well. Although obviously he has given his voice to other animated series before the first time that we've seen him involved with the Lego franchise. We've had Kung Fu Yoga, Railroad Tigers, Skip Trace, something. And the really cool thing for me as well, there's something. Even in each one of those, there was a new side to Jackie that we got to see. Now, not everybody will enjoy all of his films all of the time. That's impossible. But there is always something to appreciate in all of the films that he does, even now after all these years. And for me, a really interesting thing as well, I know I was mentioning earlier on his early work, and actually we were talking about Forbidden Kingdom, and it wasn't until I've just looked now on IMDb at the date, and that's 10 years ago. Where has that time gone? That has gone so fast. But another one here, so yeah, Chinese Zodiac, another one I enjoyed. The finale on that it's a great one. Sort of harks back to his 80s films with the big end sequence. And in 2012 I was actually very, very fortunate to be able to go to the UK premiere of that one as well, to see it in the cinema and to be surrounded by the hundreds of excited fans ready waiting to see it on the big screen. So that was a great experience. But I'm going down the list, so I'm going backwards here. Obviously I am skipping out, I'm not going through everything, we haven't got time to list all of them. So I've just said the Forbidden Kingdom, so we've got The Myth and New Police Story. Again, two very, very, very different films, but released around the same sort of time. We've got The Medallion, Vampire Effect, Shanghai Nights, The Tuxedo, Rush Hour 2, The Accidental Spy. That's The Accidental Spy. That was one that I'm looking forward to actually showing to my kids, both of which are starting to get older now to be able to watch Jackie's films, and that is a good one if you're parents out there wanting to bring the kids into the sort of the Jackie Chan film franchise. Then The Accidental Spy is a good one to start on there. We've got Shanghai Noon, which I loved at the time. It's 18 years ago. Wow, that's so... I remember going to see that one at the cinema multiple times. Actually, some of the students at the school that I was working at the time, they went with me to see that one. And I always remember there's the scene in when he's fighting the Indian in the water with the spin hook kick and the water, and they use the slow-mo effect and an awesome sound effect. And where he throws the two axes and they hit the trees, and then Jackie proceeds to use the actual trees themselves to fight with and bounce off and flip from, and yeah, such a cool scene. And then obviously the fight sequence in the bar as well. That's an awesome sequence, and obviously Owen Wilson as well is brilliant in that film. Gorgeous, another one. The fight sequences with Brad Allen and the training sequences in that film really stand out. Brad Allen is somebody I aspired to. He was somebody else who I had the pictures of on my wall when I was younger. There's somebody I wanted to emulate and be able to move like a phenomenal martial artist. So has now gone on to be an action coordinator in his own right. And has been involved with more movies than people actually realise, I think. Rush Hour, which I think is one of the films that really helped establish Jackie in the West and with American and UK audiences. Some great one-liners and some great scenes in there. Who Am I? Another one of my favourites as well. The end sequence on the rooftop fighting up there, that's a great scene when he jumps down the side of the building, sliding down the glass. I mean, stomach churning stuff. Mr. Nice Guy, another favourite, especially when he rolls over the circular saw. My goodness, I remember my dad used to work in plastic fabrication. They used to use circular saws, and I remember him going on about how dangerous they are. And when he saw that sequence, I can't actually remember the comment he made, but I remember it had a head shake at the same time when that one was going on. And when he runs out of the door when the building's not finished and he's hanging off the door handle. And when he runs and jumps into the soft top car. That's an amazing sequence. Police Story 4, First Strike. For me, I really enjoyed there's a combination where he's stood in front of the scaffolding on wheels, and he's moving around there. That's brilliant. And then when he's further up, and they're using the ladders, I think there's nobody out there, martial arts wise, in films that's in their 30s plus, that hasn't had a go at swinging around a pair of step ladders, and you'll know how much it hurts your fingers. And if you hit yourself on the back or the head with them, or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a bit daft like that. But no, I remember picking up a set of step ladders and trying to swing them around, and then realising how much of a silly idea that really was. First Strike, I think, we just said First Strike. Thunderbolt, bit of a departure. Obviously, it was this was straight off the back. Well, not straight away, but just after Jackie had his ankle injury. So it's a little bit of a departure from Jackie's sort of normal, or at the time it was, sort of action films, but still very enjoyable. I really, and the music in that one, I always remember the music was really cool. Rumble in the Bronx, which I've obviously gone on about hundreds of times already in this show. My personal favourite. It's just a film I'll go back to. It's got everything in there. It's got the comedy, it's got the action, it's got the stunts. The rooftop jump. It's got everything in there. It's such a complete Jackie Chan film experience for me. Drunken Master 2. There's a funny one for me. This one, I remember I was so desperate to get hold of this film. And it's okay to sort of talk about this one now, but I remember at the time, any Jackie Chan fans will know in the 90s, getting hold of Drunken Master 2 was an absolute nightmare. It was just so hard to get hold of, and I think I eventually got hold of a copy from eBay, which, although was advertised as being an official copy, was actually a transfer of the VCD version. I remember at the time, with some sort of cobbled together cover. But now again, I've got that one in VCD, VHS, DVD. I've got all the different versions. It's the same film, but I just like to have the more multiple formats. Crime Story, again, that was a bit of a different one as well at the time for people. So it's a nice dramatic one. City Hunter, utterly bonkers. Bonkers but brilliant. Somebody I do speak to from time to time, another UK actor, Mr. Gary Daniels is in that. He plays Ken from Street Fighter in there. It's a really funky sequence where they kind of get zapped by the arcade machine, and then they turn into the fighters, and then Jackie turns into Chun-Li, and they have this fight scene. It's all good fun. It's some great little moments. There's a really nice fight scene with Richard Norton at the end as well, which is definitely worth checking out. Super Cop, Police Story 3. It's one that another one of those ones that I had the fight sequences from this one on that same, the video I talked about previously, with all the clips sort of put together in one long sequence. That was the fights from Super Cup featured on there. Most memorable sequence I've seen in there for me being the helicopter jump, which Jackie has talked about more recently, about how it, the breakdown and how it came to be and the process that it went through. And the guts it takes to jump off the rooftop, even with the safety harness, to still have to jump off and grab hold of the ladder of the helicopter before being flown around and crashed into billboards. Twin Dragons. Really, again, it's a fun film, that one. The standout for me being the end in the car factory. Well, it's sort of like a car testing factory. The car run or jump whenever the car's let down off the Jack onto the floor, and it comes speeding towards Jackie, and he jumps on the bonnet and runs over the car as it's going underneath him, and it's something that I've seen several times copied in films, and people have tried to do something similar, but not quite got it as good as Jackie's got it, obviously. But it's still a fun one. Operation Condor, which it's a big film at the time. It was obviously on a massive scale, but there's some little things in there. There's a little combination he does where it's like a kip up, like a head spring rotation movement, and it's so fast. And I remember watching it over and over again and trying to copy it. It does like a rotation spin into a head kip up to turn around to hold a gun at somebody, and it's so cool how he does it. And it's one of those things, you have to watch over and over and over again. And you've got Miracles. I remember that one for there's a one long single shot through a building. And obviously the fight sequences as well. I think it was, we were talking to Mark Strange about Miracles, where Jackie does a 540 was it 540 outside crescent kick sweep technique, and then obviously at the end again where he's using the ropes still connected to his foot to tie up other people. It's a really cool idea, very, very clever. Oh, and then fighting on the ladders and pushing the ladders around as well. I'm just having a total geek out here, really, aren't I? You just have to bear with me. Police Story 2, which we talked about with the park fight sequence. And then at the end with the explosives, and just some really clever usage of props in that film as well. Dragons Forever, the three dragons together, an amazing film, a standout piece, action piece. Some fantastic fight sequences, really, really some huge stunts and massive falls in that film. And the end scene in the factory probably being the standout one. Brilliant one. Project A2. So I'm going backwards with these. So again, it's quite a grand film again, and some. There's the sequence where Jackie's running up the bamboo scaffolding. For me, that's it, and he's fighting around there. It's a great scene. We've got Armor of God. I could keep going on this forever, couldn't I? I'm still only back to 1986, so I'm going to have to speed this last section up. Okay, so we've got Armor of God, we've got Police Story, we've got Heart of Dragon. Heart of Dragon is a combination where he does a backflip off the wall to a spin hook kick. And I've got this obsession with Jackie's spin hook kicks, and the way he does his spin hook and his jump spin hook. I actually spent far too long trying to emulate it. Outright copy it, I would suppose. And I kind of have it. There you go, ultimate geek. When I perform my spin hook kicks for film, I have there's different ways of doing it. And I have actually, it's for Steve Lawson actually, I've said to him, do you want me to do it like Jackie does his? It's because I practiced it that much, and he has a very specific way of straight legging the technique and sort of cutting an angle with it, and he has this kind of really nice sort of shoulder and hip flick that he puts into his kick. You can tell I'm a martial arts geek, can't you, when I'm talking about it. The Protector, I actually... Yeah, it's not for a lot of people. It's not their favourite. I can understand. And there's one particular section here that always makes people's eyes go wide and go, shock when Jackie, give me the fudging keys. It's just so not Jackie Chan when he delivers that line. But there's still some nice moments in there. Obviously they were trying to sort of redesign Jackie Chan for the American audience, and fair play to him for trying at the time. Obviously Jackie then went on to do Police Story, which is ultimately way far superior. The fight scene with Bill Wallace is actually two versions of that if you look it up. Bill's another person I've been fortunate enough to meet a number of times over the years. He's a great guy. My Lucky Stars, Wheels on Meals, Cannonball Run. I remember seeing Cannonball Run 2 at the time when it released and not realising who Jackie Chan was. And there's this scene when he does a jump split and splits his trousers. And I remember watching that fight sequence over and over and over again. And it wasn't until many years later that I actually realised that it was Jackie Chan. We've got Project A, Winners and Sinners, We're getting really far back now. Battle Creek Brawl, another one. It's sort of trying to redevelop Jackie for the Western audience, and again, it's one that I do like. It's nice to see him in a different setting, and obviously trying out English as well on that one. The roller skating scene and fighting forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name, but he does some really cool techniques. He actually works like a butterfly kick into it. I remember at the time when I saw it, and I was trying to perfect my butterfly kick, and then Jackie did it. And I'm like, oh, Jackie's just in a butterfly kick. It's the kick I'm trying to do. Fearless Hyena, Dragon Fist, we're getting quite far back now into Drunken Master, and the list goes back and back and back and back and back all the way to 1962. Okay, and that is just this over 139 credits as an actor, 79 credits as stunts, 55 as producer. It's just immense, and I think one of the really positive things that I and a lot of other people have gained from this, and I remember I've worked on a number of sort of independent productions, and I remember people being surprised by this, but it was something that I picked up from Jackie. When there were little jobs that need doing, getting involved and putting, I can help you. You need an extra hand, whatever it is, and other little things like, you see him, and this is what's so cool about him, when you see him, tidying up the rubbish, picking up rubbish, reusing water. Those little things that I picked up on when I was younger as a Jackie Chan fan, because I wanted to emulate my hero in every single way. But it wasn't just the things that he did on film. It was the things that you saw away from that, the way that he would pick up rubbish, he would reuse water, and I picked up on those things as a youngster and copied them, and it helped shape and create who I am now. And some of those things and those ideas I'm now passing on to my kids. So that's it's another thing. I think sometimes that people don't appreciate. Now, obviously, he's a person. He's not perfect. None of us are. But the guy does so much good away from filmmaking as well. On that subject, I did mention this earlier, that I'm very fortunate to be able to work with with the European section of his charity. They do a lot of phenomenal work raising money for lots of different charitable things, both in the UK and around Europe, and actually further afield as well, in places like Rwanda. Late last year, I was very, very fortunate and very, very thankful to be gifted one of it's a commemorative watch that was, I think it was for the anniversary of Jackie's stunt team. There was actually footage that went around the internet at the time, and that's actually sat on my desk now, right in front of me, is that watch. But no, coming back to what I was going to say, the European branch of his charity, I've been supporting them in various different ways over the years with charity-based events and just raising awareness. I think everybody, anytime I've been to any martial arts-based events, they've seen the T-shirt with the logo on, and it prompts people to ask, oh, what's that? And, and it just helps raise awareness, which ultimately, over time, can help raise some money. Now, Years ago, I used to do, well, I say it makes it sound like it was decades, but it's not that long ago. I used to regularly do UK tours, teaching martial arts, kicking especially. It's one of my favourite areas. I like to really dissect kicks and help people. I always like to come away from a workshop having helped somebody perform a kick that prior to me arriving they couldn't do. I get great satisfaction from that. And I've had a number of people over the years approach me about starting up my kicking workshops again, and I've always been too busy, truth be told, just way too busy with my businesses and with my family and everything. And I've kind of reached a point now where I do have a little bit more free time. Hence me, trying to get back into the film work again a little bit. Well, I say get back into it, put more focus into it. But I also want to get more of my time focused around touring and teaching martial arts again, because it is something I do have a great passion for. And I thought there'd be a good opportunity to tie in some fundraising into that as well. So if you are one of the number of martial arts school owners or instructors that have asked me over, say, the last 6 months about arranging something, and we've never actually been able to quite get around to doing it, what I am going to say now on the record, on the podcast, is if you do want to book me for a workshop at your school, or through your franchise, or whatever your setup is, however it works, I am now available. And what I'm going to do for every single booking is donate a percentage of my earnings from that event to Jackie Chan's charity, to help them with all the causes that they've got going on. For me personally, it feels like the least that I can do when, going back to the mid-90s, as I said at the start of the podcast, when I was going through sort of my lull in my martial arts training that we all go through, it was seeing Rumble in the Bronx that relit that fire, that made me want to do all the different things that I've been able to do now, and one of those being now sitting here recording this podcast. So it feels like the right thing to do, and the least that I can do, and the correct thing to do, to give back in some way, in way of more than just saying thanks, and being able to help both promote and support and give money to his charity seems like a good way to do that. So if you are interested and you want to get in touch, you can go through kickbackpodcast.com. You can actually get me through my personal website, which is chrisjonesaction.co.uk, or obviously through Facebook, telephone, all those sort of things as well. So earlier on, I actually mentioned as well that we're going to be speaking to Mr. Mike Leader in an upcoming episode. He's a good friend of mine, somebody I've known over the years, and he's helped me immensely with my career. This guy has some fantastic advice. If you're listening out there now and you have an interest in getting into martial arts, action films, whether it's you're looking at more from a production standpoint, or a performer, or acting, or stunts, or whatever, this guy has so much useful information and valuable information. So please do listen. It will be honest. It will be to the point. But this is what you need to progress. So keep a listen out for that one. Thank you all for your time and for indulging me in this passion, should I say, being able to speak about Jackie and his work. And thank you to everybody that's contributed, because without you guys, this podcast today could not have happened. Again, as I always say, please keep on rating, reviewing, sharing on iTunes. That helps massively. I hope you all have a great weekend. If you've listened to this and it's inspired you to go and check out some Jackie Chan films, please do. And on the topic of Jackie's charity, I will link that in the show notes. And if you have a few spare quid, go and give it to these guys, because they do a phenomenal job supporting some fantastic charities both in the UK and abroad. Thanks again, guys. I'm going to sign off there. Have a great weekend, and I will speak to you all next week.